Once upon a time, many years ago, there was a king who was obsessed with being happy. He did almost everything he thought he could that could bring him true happiness, but it never did. So one day, he called some of his top soldiers and asked them to go into his kingdom and find the happiest man in the kingdom. And once they did, he asked them to bring his shirt so that he can wear that for a day, and he thought that that would truly make him happy. So the soldiers started looking for the happiest man in the kingdom, and they decided to go to the richest man and ask him for his shirt. So they went to the richest man and told him what the king wanted. But the rich man said, "Well, actually, I'm not really happy." And the soldiers asked him, "How come?" Because you probably have almost everything you need. And so the rich man said, "Well, that's true. I have a lot of money, but I have a lot of enemies too that want to take this money away from me. There are thieves that want to steal my money almost every day. And I always live in fear of losing all of this money." So the soldiers came back out and thought, well, that was surprising. So next they went to the strongest man in the kingdom, and they went and told him what the king wanted. And the strong man said, "Well, I'm not happy either." And so the soldiers asked him, "How come?" "Because you're so strong that everyone fears you." And the strong man said, "You're right. I am strong and everyone does fear me. But that's only when I am around. When I'm not around, no one fears me. In fact, they only keep talking bad about me behind my back. Plus, I just went to the doctors and they told me that I have a disease and I've only got 6 months left to live." Wow, the soldiers were surprised. And so they came back out and thought, who do we go to next? So they went to the most handsome man in the kingdom. He was the envy of all the men in the kingdom, and all the women wanted to be with him. So they went up to him and told him what the king wanted. And he said, "Well, I'm not happy either." And they asked him why. He said, "Well, every time I have a small scar or a small pimple on my face, I feel so ugly and hide myself in my room for days until that heals." And so the soldier said, "Well, a small scar or a small pimple would hardly matter, right? All the women in this kingdom are crazy for you." And so he said, "Well, that's true. They are crazy for me, but that's only because of my looks. No one knows me for me. No one knows me for who I am." Well, the soldiers were surprised and they kept continuing their search. Days and months passed by and they went and visited all the successful people in the kingdom, but none of them were happy. Now, in their search, they wandered into a small village that was still part of the kingdom, and they saw a well and thought of taking a break and having some water. Now, as they were drinking water, they saw this man sitting under a tree far away. And he was really happy. He was singing out loud. He had a big smile on his face. And he seemed really, really happy and enjoying himself. Out of curiosity, the soldiers went up to this man and said, "Hey, you look really happy. What do you do for a living?" The man said, "Well, I don't do anything. I'm actually a beggar. I sit by the roadside and beg every day." And the soldier said, "Well, that must be horrible. How come you're so happy?" And the man said, "Why not? I have everything I need. The people of this village are kind enough to give me food 3 times a day. I have this tree that provides shelter to me against the rain and the sun. And I have friends, the birds in the tree and this little dog that lives with me under the tree. I've got everything I need, and that's why I'm happy." Soldiers were a little surprised, but then they thought, maybe we've finally found the happiest man in the kingdom. And so they told him what the king wanted and said, "It looks like you fit the bill. So can we take your shirt so that we can give it to the king?" And the beggar looked at them and said, "Oh, but you see, I don't own a shirt." What is happiness? We keep hearing so many different things around us about what is happiness and what it takes to be happy. Some say it's a state of mind, and that is true. Happiness is a state of mind. Some others say that, well, pursuing happiness all the time is not good either. You've got to learn how to deal with all other emotions as well. You've got to learn how to deal with sadness, to deal with jealousy, fear, anxiety. And that's true as well. No one can be in a constant state of happiness all the time. These days we've linked our happiness to things that we can possess. And possessions of things is what we think will make us happy. Things like a big house, a fancy car, a lot of money in the bank account, really good looks, a good looking partner, a good looking husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, being really strong. All of those possessions and things around us that we see, we think will make us happy. At the same time, lack of all these things makes us unhappy. So if we don't have that big house or that fancy car, we think we're unhappy. And the funny thing is, no matter how much you possess, you will always lack more. It really doesn't matter how much possessions you've accumulated. What will always matter to you more is how much more you still lack, right? And if that's the case, it means that you will never be happy. Because being happy does not come by just being happy. There are so many different traits that you need to have. For example, you can't be a criminal and still be happy. You can't keep lying to people and still be happy. You've got to have so many other personality traits. And with that will come happiness. So, for an exercise, close your eyes for a few minutes and think of an ideal version of yourself. This ideal version is truly happy. Think of all the other personality traits that he or she possesses. Think of where he stays. Think of what does he do for a living. Think of what does he or she wear. Think of who are they with, who is their life partner. Think of how mature they are. And think, if that ideal version of yourself would be in your position today, then what would they do? Once you understand this, it's a good idea to try and become that ideal version of yourself every day, a little by little. Now go crazy with this imagination. This ideal version of yourself, the first time you think of it, don't be very subtle, don't be very modest about what you want to be. You could be the richest man or woman in the world. You could be the most handsome or the most beautiful woman in the world. Just go crazy in terms of what you think you really feel will make you happy. And then try and start becoming more like that person every day. Now, every now and then, revisit this exercise. Maybe once a month, maybe once every few months. It really depends. You can decide the frequency. But revisit this exercise every now and then. Now, as you go through life and as you gain more and more experiences in life, you will see that this ideal version of yourself will keep changing. It wouldn't be the same version that you thought of when you did this exercise for the first time. This ideal version of yourself will keep changing. Now, every day, you try to become more like this ideal version of yourself. So every day, you will start to get closer to that ideal version of yourself. But the beauty of this whole exercise is that this ideal version of yourself will also change and will become more like you. So as you try to become more like that ideal version, that ideal version will start to become more like you. Until one day, you will realize that you've already become that ideal version of yourself. And that day, my friend, you will find true happiness. I make videos on personal growth and personal finance. So if you like this kind of content, please like and please subscribe. As I say, race only against yourself because you will always win. See you in the next video.